for Patrick Reed, last week on Golf Central, I was on with Rex Hoggard, and he was my analyst. I was hosting, and our producer said to us, well, as a segment, we're going to assume that the top 6 in the U.S. Ryder Cup points lock down, and then you have to pick the other 6. And I picked Patrick Reed as my captain's pick at that time. And as you can imagine, I got a lot of grief from a lot of people about that, because I didn't pick Brian Harman. And so anyway, it is what it is. I got a lot of grief, but I thought Patrick Reed is playing really well. In fact, Andrew put together this graphic that compares where Patrick is with who would probably be the other primary candidates for the position. So I thought this was great that he and Don put this together. Here's Patrick Reed, 2025 majors, because remember, that's where he's getting his points. He can't get them from anywhere else with the way the point systems are structured. 3rd in the Masters, tied for 23rd at the U.S. Open. His last 5 events, he has a win and 3 top 10s. His experience, 3 Ryder Cups, 7, 3, and 2. He is a major champion. He won 9 times on the PGA Tour. Okay, Brian Harman. 2025 majors, tied for 36th of the Masters, tied for 59th at the U.S. Open. Is again, just one-to-one comparison. Patrick Reed played much better in those events. Last 5. Average finish for Brian Harman, 43rd. Experience, he's been on 1 Ryder Cup team. He's 500. He is a major champion too. He's won 4 times. Maverick McNeely, 2025 majors, tied for 32nd Masters, tied for 37th U.S. Open. Last 5, average finish has been 23rd. Experience, hasn't been on a Ryder Cup team. He's a one-time winner on the PGA Tour. Okay, Harris English, 2025 majors, tied for 2nd to PGA Championship, tied for 12th at the Masters. Strong. His last 5 form, this one's a little bit different. We jumped around in this because he does have a win this year, and we needed a place to illustrate that, so we put it in the last 5. I know it's not his last 5 form, but he had a win in January at the Farmers, and he's had 2 top 10s in his last 5. His experience, he's been on 1 Ryder Cup team. He was 1 and 2. He's won 5 times on the PGA Tour. So I just thought it's a really strong body of work for Patrick Reed. Andrew, could you go back to that other graphic, that beautiful graphic that you guys made of Patrick Reed? I just thought it's a position right now that where we have Patrick, who's 3-0 in singles, that it makes it a very strong argument. Now, whether it will be an argument that, and remember, Bryson's already, for the discussion that we had last week and for the purposes of today, Bryson's already in the top 6. So the presumption is that Bryson's going to qualify. He doesn't need a captain's pick. And then it's a question whether Keegan Bradley would pick Patrick Reed because of all the things that they've talked about with Patrick in the past, even before LIV, how well Patrick mixes with the other players. I look at it and say, who cares? I mean, isn't that part of the old school thinking problem, that someone needs to be in the in group sitting at the popular table in order to get on the team? This is a strong body of work, and remember, we still have the Open before us for Patrick Reed to try to once again speak to his attributes to make the team. So I just thought it was a really interesting way to kick things off this morning, to start that conversation on whether Patrick Reed should be on the United States Ryder Cup team, and whatever you guys think. Dom, I would assume that since we're starting the conversation here this morning, that probably was your question of the day, to see what people think about putting Patrick on Team USA. Captain America back again.
Yes, that's correct, Matt. That was the question of the day. Should Patrick Reed be on the U.S. Ryder Cup team? And I phrased it as a captain's pick, because at this point he basically has to be a captain's pick. I think with where he is in the point standings, even if he were to win the Open Championship, I don't even think he would qualify in points. He just doesn't. He's not collecting points, really. So
yep.
He would have to be a captain's pick. And right now it's 94% are saying yes. And Andrew, put that graphic up that we created, the long one with the comparison chart back up. Because when you look at this, Matt, again, if you're looking at captain's picks and you're Keegan Bradley, 10, 11, 12, historically, Matt, I would say probably at least two of these people usually end up on the team. You know, someone who's 10, 11, 10, and 12. At the bare minimum, conservatively, I think forever, at least one of these three people in the 10, 11, 12 spot is always on the team. So you're looking at this group. I think you can make a very, very strong case that he deserves to be on the team right now, this second, more than Harmon and McNeely. I think it's a tough case to make against English, but if you swapped him out for Harmon and McNeely, seems incredibly reasonable to me right now, Matt.
Yeah, I agree with the argument that you're making on Patrick Reed getting on the United States Ryder Cup team. I just wonder with Patrick whether this isn't going to be about actual numbers and performance, but it's going to be more about politics. That's where my concern is on it, because it sure seems like he's giving a very, very good run. I think he needs a really high finish at the Open to slam dunk this thing, if it's going to happen for Patrick.
Hey, Matt, I just want to give you a quick update with this Patrick Reed stuff, because it's moving around here. Minesh writes, Patrick should always be on the team. He's Captain America. You need that feistiness. And our question of the day, should he be on the Ryder Cup team as captain pick? It's still heavy. It's now 73% are saying Patrick Reed belongs on this Ryder Cup team coming up in September.
I would be curious for the 27% that don't want Patrick on the team. Based on what? You know what I mean? What's
well, here's the thing, Matt.
That...
Andrew, put up the graphic again with the comparisons. If you look at this chart that we've built here, if you delete the names, Matt, just delete the names. Everybody's name is gone. It's just 4 columns. I don't even think you would look at the other people. The person on your far left, with a win and 3 top 10s in their last 5 events, all that Ryder Cup experience, that incredible Ryder Cup record. He's got all those tour wins. He's got a major championship. He's playing solid in the majors this year. You would look at that person and say, I don't know who that is, but he needs to be on the team over those other 3 people. It's just when you bring his name into it, and like you were talking about before about sort of the politics of it all and the preconceived notions, that's it. That's literally the only reason that he doesn't belong on the team, or that there's even a discussion. Am I wrong?
Well, you know, would be interesting about it, and Andrew, sorry we keep on barking at you to put up different graphics. If you put up the graphic of where the United States points are right now for the Ryder Cup, you could pretty much do this same comparison for everybody that's outside of the qualifying, right? Colin Morikawa, who has been playing in signature events, and because he's playing in signature events, there's a higher purse, and because the point is based upon money, Colin Morikawa is kind of in that secured position. I realize that he's 5th in the world, and he had a decent weekend at the Rocket Classic, which we're going to be talking about, but his season has not been exceptional, and you could do that same comparison. Ben Griffin deserves to be on the team. Keegan Bradley deserves to be on the team. So from that standpoint, if you took Harris English, but for a second, leave this graphic up there, Andrew, if you would. But if you took Harris English on the weight of his performance and a win this year, et cetera, I'm okay with that. But that still leaves us 2 spots. Is Maverick McNeely's season or Brian Harmon's season better than Patrick Reed? No. Andrew Novak's had a really good season. I'd love to see Andrew Novak be on that team, but right now he has that injury, the muscle pull between his ribs that he told us about on the show at the Travelers. So unless he comes back and says, oh no, I'm 100% fit, and it shows with performance, then he's an injured athlete. Patrick Cantlay, has he had a better season than Patrick Reed? No. Sam Burns, has he had a better season, despite the fact that Sam Burns is awesome with the putter? No, he hasn't had a better season. Both of those guys had the experience. So all I'm saying is that if you extended that comparison to as high up as you choose to go, Dom, I don't think we're going to find a body of work that's better.
Well,
So it's
what's
just,
interesting, I think, what's interesting about the points side of it, Matt, is so we have basically 5 events left. And we're going to talk about the FedEx Cup standings in the bubble because remember, it's moving to the top 100, not the top 125. So we're going to discuss that and show you guys an update on that. But what I was going to say is there's only 5 events left before that locks down, basically. And that includes the Open Championship. Now, there's a couple opposite field events, but it's 5 events, basically. And then you have the playoffs. For the guys that are 17th on that Ryder Cup list we were showing, if they want to move up, right? If you're Cam Young or Daniel Berger and you're trying to make a push or a run, you got to play a lot of golf. A lot of golf. You're going to play 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks out of 11 weeks in a row if you include the playoffs
well, remember,
in there.
you still have one more major left, but go ahead. That's 1.5 points.
Correct, but
for every $1,000 earned.
True, that's true. But one of the things I was getting at, Matt, is Patrick Reed does not have the ability to collect points over the next 2 or 3 months. He can only get points
other
in the Open
Championship. Than the Open, but go ahead.
The Open Championship. Now, he could win another 3 live events, right? And that really is going to make his stock higher, and there'll be certainly a push to make him a captain's picks. But those live tour wins are worth 0 Ryder Cup points. 0. So that makes it complicated. And the guys down in the 15 to 20 range here on this Ryder Cup standings list that you're looking at, I would imagine they're going to play, assuming the Ryder Cup is as important to all of them as we think it is, they're going to play a lot of golf to try and accumulate as many points as they possibly can as we come down the stretch here, because Keegan's got to make his picks, when the playoffs are wrapping up, which is not that far off, Matt.
Yeah, that's why I was saying it's fascinating, and that's also why I was saying that I think that Patrick has to play well at the Open to really emphatically make his case. I think if he's anything less than 10th, then he's going to lose the momentum. And that momentum isn't necessarily based upon the reality of performance. It's based upon what is also a stark reality of the politics that go into all of this. I think the question should be, does the body of work, is it better than those that you're comparing to? Please take me away from the fraternity approach, their best friends approach, all of that. Take me away from that, because that didn't work. In Rome, it was a colossal failure, right? And I would dare say it's been a failure of putting people on the team because we felt like there was a compulsion to put them on the team, has been something that's hurt the United States Ryder Cup team for, the last 20 years. Probably more than that, 30 years. So
Keegan has said publicly, Matt, that he just wants to win, and he wants the players on the team that are going to lead the U.S. to victory. Read into that as you may.
Yeah, that's assuming that motivation is not beat down by politics and circumstance since he initially made those. But when he came out, he basically said, "I want the best players I can get for Team USA," and that's where I'm coming from with all this. I'm not really concerned about the politics one way or another, where you stand one way or another. I'm concerned about who are the best players you can put on the team to give Team USA the best chance to win. And I think that the conversation becomes a little bit more acute because Team Europe is playing really well. So, or those that are looking like they're going to be on the team for Team Europe are playing really well and having a lot of high finishes. And so you can go into it and go, yeah, it's at Bethpage Black, which is what, an hour away from where I am right now, maybe an hour and a half with traffic. You could look at that and go, okay, there's Andrew put up their board where they stand right now as of the time of the show. But you could say, yeah, they're going to be in New York and it's a hostile crowd and it's going to be this and that. But even if you say that the gallery at the Ryder Cup in Bethpage is the 13th player on the team, there's nothing saying that player is going to go 4-0 or 5-0. right? This is going to be structured in such a way that these are pretty hardened veterans and they're used to Ryder Cups. They pretty much know what to expect there. And outside of that, if there's anything more to be expected than what they've dealt with before, even if more intense in its passion, if it's anything beyond that line that I just defined, then that's on the PGA of America in terms of how they're structuring and what standards of conduct should be accepted. I think at Hazeltine, the lines were crossed. That was just too much. It was too dangerous. The people asserted themselves too much to a point of danger to players or themselves. And I think that comes down to a lot of it comes down to how you manage alcohol sales, et cetera. It's no different than any other big sport in the United States, where you start to look at it and you go, when it is golf, because the thing that divides a player and the gallery is a rope. You have to be careful, and you want to maintain the dignity of the event, but mostly you want to maintain the safety of the event on both sides. And ultimately, do any of you want some guy in the grandstands to determine the results of a match that you're vested in, one way or the other? Yeah, Dom.
I was just saying, Andrew, put those standings back up. Thinking about the European team when you're talking there, I'm looking at that team list right now. I don't think there's room for a lot of picks in there. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but Ludwig Åberg, Justin Rose, Victor Hovland, and John Rahm, you explained to me under what circumstances they are not on that team. They're all going to be on that team. And Rasmus is in the number 7 spot, and that's too high not to get a captain's pick. So, I think there is only one available spot for the Europeans.
Right. Dietrich's already won on the PGA Tour. Matt Wallace is an absolute fighter. Aaron Rai, yeah, they've got, honestly,
I'm just saying there's one pick. They only have one pick because John Rahm is a lock. There's no way they're not going to get that figured out. John Rahm's going to be on a team. And you're not going to not pick Justin Rose if he's 9th and it's Justin Rose with 1,000 Ryder Cups under his belt. They're going to put Ludwig on the team. They're going to put Victor on the team, no matter what, pretty much. So, and Rasmussen number 7, like I said, I think that high up, it's a lock for a pick. That literally means, unlike the U.S. team where there's some movement here, there's only one available slot for the Europeans, I think, Matt. Only one.
Right. Right. That's what I guess I'm coming down to with all of this whole conversation today and how it relates to the discussion of Patrick Reed, is that the pathway for Keegan Bradley to decide who his 6 captains picks will be is not anywhere near as straightforward as it is for Luke Donald. The bottom half of Team USA, and that's really from Colin Morikawa on, is not as strong as the top half, and absolutely the choices are not as strong as Europe has. So you've got to start to look at it and go, okay, how can I ensure that I have the best team that I possibly can have? So people will be watching this wherever you're watching us around the world right now, and you're going to look at Patrick Cantlay and so how can we not pick Patrick Cantlay? Because he hasn't had a good season. You know, maybe he'll find it at the Ryder Cup. I guess we have to say the same thing with Colin Morikawa, though he's showing signs. So it's a really interesting conversation. We will continue with the Fairways of Life show. I promised you some different directions that we're going to get into, and I'll do that after this break. But once we started this conversation again about the Ryder Cup, and because we're getting closer and closer, and as Dom pointed out, at least on the PGA Tour side, there are fewer and fewer opportunities for players to assert themselves emphatically. And for Patrick Reed that started this whole discussion, I think there's basically one opportunity for him to assert himself, and that's to play very well at the Open. Sure, he can continue to win on LIV, and that might get some respect and interest, but the majors are the things where he can really move the needle on his own without it being interpreted in any other way. So I think it's really important what he does at Royal Portrush, and we'll see how that plays itself out as well.